listening to the House by the Video Store podcast.
Groovy. No more room in hell. The dead will walk here.
We have such sights to show you.
I kick ass for the Lord.
Great Scott, keep away!
Welcome to the House by the Video Store podcast. I'm your host, William, and joining me today will be Sean.
Hello.
And Derek.
Hello.
He has returned from the depths of no solid internet connection, mostly.
Did they fix it, or did it just start?
I mean, like, in theory, I guess, but...
Yeah, they fixed it in air quotes.
Yeah, we'll see how long it works this time.
Yes, so...
This podcast sponsored by AT&T.
For now.
The opposite of that. So in this podcast, we're going to be talking about Monster Squad and Goosebumps. So movies that are kind of a similarly targeted audience from very different time periods.
Yeah, which you can definitely tell,
Which
but
is
we'll get more into that.
Obvious, considering the politically incorrect things said by young kids and Monster Squad, which is...
Yeah.
They need to remake that film just for that aspect to get rid of that stuff, but we'll talk about that later.
Yep. So, and before we get into the main reviews and the things we've been watching, I know before on our last podcast, we mentioned the 48-hour film festival that we were part of. The screening just happened tonight, and it went really well and got us all kind of pumped for it. And that
Got
will
a couple boos, but, you know.
We took care of those motherfuckers in the parking lot. That's over.
We got boos of joy. Now, everybody seemed to be loud and like it, but it's also how much of that was the people you brought with you.
Yeah,
Well,
we brought a big posse, so we had a lot of support.
We rolled deep. But you know, so that'll be hitting the internet on Friday, October 30th, so you can check it out, see kind of our first piece of, you know, full narrative, you know, content. We've had some of the openings for videos and things that we've shot, but this will be the first thing that's kind of like a narrative, story-driven post. And
even though it's pretty light on story, but it was done in 48 hours too, so this isn't like a typical thought out video,
we
were still happy with it.
Yeah, and we figured out we scripted it in about 2 hours. You know, now granted it changed, but
yeah, we had the general. I think we had the general like overall arc of the story done by the time we got back to Sean's house while driving from the location where they gave us the information.
Yeah, we just spitballing ideas in the car and went from there.
But you know, it's something we're excited about. I think it, you know, turned out really well, especially considering we shot in 48 hours, and you know, it was the first time we had participated in that project. But you know, we also had a really great cast and crew that helped us out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the last podcast we went through who everybody was. You know, the actors were great, and we brought in people that had worked on these before on 48 hours that, you know, were able to help run everything and effectively and efficiently, and great editor
And two, William cut the trailer, and it's on the site now, but it also has a listing of the cast and crew members there too.
I think one thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Sean.
Whenever we do post it, I think I'm going to try to get people's Twitter channel, because we got some actors on there and actresses and stuff, and some other people that are in, you know, that do productions and everything. So we'll try to plug them. You give them some follows on Facebook and everything to keep up with what they're doing, because everybody on here did a really excellent job.
Yeah, and that's one thing I just want to say is like even if we don't like win the film festival, I think the way that everybody enjoy themselves will bring them back to work with us again, because like all the actors seem to really enjoy doing stuff with us. I know James seemed like he enjoyed helping us to produce it and helped you with all this. It just seemed like everybody enjoyed themselves doing it.
We got really lucky that we just, like, you know, it was people that we hadn't worked with before, some of them, and it just like, it was great that everybody clicked, and you know, we got these people now that we can call on.
Yep. So very excited for everybody to take a look at that and give some feedback on it. And two, when you watch it, be the first person on social media that kind of guesses what our influence was, or finds all the Easter eggs, because there are a few of them in there.
Mm-hmm. And share the hell out of it, please. That's the biggest thing we can ask is like just share it around, you know, and try to get as many people as can to watch it and enjoy it, and just share it. And two, just to kind of, you know, like lay the groundwork so that, you know, this is the 48-hour film festival. You know, as a horror short, we got the genre of B movie. But I think the end product is something that most of the people who like our site will probably find something to like in, at least, you know, with the references we made. And it's kind of the first of a number of original projects we plan on working on, because we have some ideas for things that come up in the next few months that are kind of exciting. And
some longer term plans of things to work on. And if you want to help us out on that, because this stuff isn't cheap, and we have a ton of equipment and people's time and food, and you don't think about when you do these productions, just feeding people costs a lot of money.
Like my wife cooked food, bought a bunch of food. It's just, and on top of that, all the stuff you buy, just small stuff too, just basic supplies to get by on.
Because as we're doing this short film, like to get some of the equipment, like we're just riding up to Target and buying stuff really quick just to have it. And, and like I said, we have some pretty, interesting original projects planned coming up the next few months. So one thing you can do if you want to support us is if you go to the site, there's a link at the very top in the banner to our Patreon, where you can pledge support and get some backer exclusive content, and you can throw you shout outs or whatever you want if you go in there and support it, and just kind of let you help us try to cover the cost of some of the things we're working on, because it gets expensive.
The site alone is expensive, running that, server cost, podcast host, and everything. So it's just, now that we're going to start actively doing more original projects, that just kind of compounds the amount of money we're going to be spending on this site and not be bringing in. But yeah, we do this for fun. So, if you want to see us keep doing stuff and help us out, like we'll be doing it, but the more help we get, the easier it is on us all to do this.
Yeah, and we have, like we said, plenty of projects lined up for the future, and just the, more time and money we had to put into them, the better the end product will be. And, it's all stuff that I'm very excited for. And if you like our short, definitely, try to help us support what we're doing. Just, even this podcast, we record them on Skype because it's kind of tough to get right in the same place at the same time. And to actually get the mixers and mics and everything would be a ton of money that, until we reach a certain amount of penetration, it's not something we can do. Or we can, but it'd be at the expense of getting equipment for filming things. And that's kind of something we're more excited about. But so you can go to the website, the banner's there. If you're on mobile or desktop versions, there's a link to the Patreon. You can go there, and there's more information on the Patreon and links to some of our better content, so you can go out there and check that out.
Yeah, and our lowest, you can pledge whatever. Essentially, it's a monthly thing. I think the default set at $2. So if you want to pledge $2 a month, like that would help us out a ton. You can do whatever you want. But yeah, you can just set that, and once a month it'll kind of send us that money if that's when you want to set it. And you can even set it, I think, at limits. And you may be able to give a one-time donation too, I believe, if you want. So yeah, that would be awesome. At least just check it out, at the very least.
Yep.
So what we've been watching?
Yeah, so for what I've been watching this week, I haven't really had a chance to watch much. Just because, I've been busy, and we came off of the 48-hour and had to film the podcast on Monday instead of normal Sundays, so didn't really have a chance to watch that much this week. I did watch the most recent episode of American Horror Story, which I think was the show really hasn't grabbed me. The storylines so far, they're all kind of sprawling out, and the Lady Gaga character is pretty cool, and those storylines are somewhat interesting. Just as a whole, there's kind of a lot going on, and it's kind of all over the place. At this point, it's not anything I would recommend any hardcore fans watch. If you've watched any previous seasons of American Horror Story and you didn't care for it, I don't think so far this season's done anything to recommend it if you didn't want to watch it. But I'll continue watching it to see what happens.
Have you kept up with Scream Queens?
Yeah, so Scream Queens I have kept up with.
Scream Queens has actually been very good. It's not like a great, I don't know, it's just a good show. And it has a lot of throwbacks in it, which I like, and it always kind of, every episode has some kind of nod to something else, which I think is interesting, and as a horror fan, you can appreciate.
And it has some pretty laugh out loud moments, and some very funny one of the best
things about it. Yeah, the characters are pretty awesome in it, and I think you know a little more of this because I didn't really watch but one episode of Scream, but Scream had a couple episodes with no deaths, correct?
Yeah, so Scream Queens has killed at least one person in every episode.
Yeah, they have one death.
That's how it should be.
Yeah, they have one death per episode, and some of them are ridiculous, and some of them are just funny. And I think that's good though because you don't really have a lull in the action on that. I haven't watched any episode yet where nobody dies. I think too, since they're like on a college campus, it increases the amount of people they have that kill. So I think that's one good thing too, because they can always kill somebody every episode.
Well, and two, like one thing though is with this show being 15 episodes and they having killed as many characters as they have already, it might start to stretch the credibility a little bit of the idea that 25 people have been killed and they just didn't shut the school down.
Yeah.
But you know, but they've had some like little workarounds in the plot around it, and it is funny in this show though. Nobody seems to be that fazed by other characters dying.
But I think that's kind of like, but those people are all like self-absorbed people. So as long as it's not them, they don't care. Yeah. And that's kind of how they've written it in. Like they're so self-absorbed that as long as they're not the ones dying, they don't care.
Yes.
Have the deaths been like significant as far as like, you know, having the funerals and showing how it's impacted them? And, you know, it sounds like it's not really.
No,
it's just
really.
kind of people die and that they're dead and they're gone, right?
But they're they just kind of die, they're gone, and then they kind of make light references to it later.
You know, I'm gonna throw a spoiler out there just because, you know, there's an episode where a dude gets both of his arms cut off, and it's incredible when it happens. And then later on,
okay, if you don't want to hear this, skip ahead about 15 seconds.
Yeah, skip ahead about 15 seconds. Anyway, the latest episode, he gets hit in the chest with the axe twice, and he gets his head chopped off with a set axe like they hit a golf ball, you know, and just cuts it off and it flies off. And it's like deaths are generally like that for the most part, so they're enjoyable.
Creative. Yeah.
And the deaths, you know, for a Fox broadcast show, they've done a little bit more than I thought they would with some of the ways they've killed characters. So, you know, it's a show that I'll continue to watch.
Just real quick, maybe the way I describe that death doesn't sound funny to people because it sounds kind of like a shitty way to die, but when you watch it in context of the episode, it's actually really funny.
Yeah, so.
I didn't do it any justice in the way I described it, but just watch it, you're not going to be disappointed.
If you watch the first episode of the series and you don't hate all the characters to the point you can't watch it, then I think it's worth continuing because it's been pretty fun. Yeah. Which is the kind of key thing. It's like I said with Scream, it just wasn't really fun. This is at least fun.
Yeah, that show just felt very lifeless and had no personality to it, and that was its biggest detriment.
Yeah, and you know, simply like I said before, referencing The Walking Dead or Hannibal, like I mean, that's I guess cool for the fans of those properties, but I don't really know it does much for your show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like another thing too is just like I'm gonna be a little honest, like if those aren't staples like in horror, you know, whereas this one like Scream Queens, well, it's not going to be either by any means, but it does reference like bigger movies, and you have Texas Chainsaw, Leprechaun. Children, which is funny because all three are movies we've done podcasts on. Now, the later ones, they've covered stuff that we haven't covered. But there's always a bigger movie reference either in words or in actions of the show. You know, and maybe it's not always a verbal acknowledgement. Maybe it's just like a set acknowledgement or a death or something. But it's good the way they do it.
So those are pretty much the only things I watched this week related to horror. I did rewatch Evil Dead 1 and 2 just because I wanted to. And
which you can never go wrong watching them.
And two, like the Evil Dead 2, I know we probably mentioned it during the Evil Dead podcast, but that commentary is great because it has Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, Greg Nicotero, and I don't want to diss anybody. I forgot the writer's name, but one of the writers of the movie.
Tappert.
I don't think it was Tappert. They're making fun of him in it. Tappert's in the commentary for the first one. But that's something you can always rewatch the commentary if you into that type of thing.
Yeah. Like I almost got to the point like where I almost only exclusively watched Evil Dead 2 with the commentary. Like I just like it so much because like you have Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi, and it's just fun to listen to him talk. You know, it's just some people you can listen to him talk all for forever, and you can always listen.
And it's also fun because it's like the commentaries are recorded like in 1999 or something, so it's a long time ago.
I thought it was like early 2000s.
Well, the Evil Dead 1 was recorded a long time ago. Maybe Evil Dead 2's commentary is recorded more recently.
Like, if you go and watch, like, what are they up to now? They had their ridiculous, like, Ted Raimi stuff.
All I know is I got the version I have is the Book of the Dead version, which I got in, like, 2003. So it's still pretty old, but... yeah, so that covers everything I've watched this week. So, Derek, have you watched any other horror items this week?
I watched America Fizzo with Batman in it. It was pretty good. I had never actually watched it. up until now, like
or all the way through.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've watched a lot of it. I don't really, or it's been so long since I watched it.
Well, it runs nonstop a lot of times on AMC during the horror movie marathons or different channels. You've probably seen most of it, just not all together.
Yeah, but like I didn't see all the stuff they edited out too. Like it's a fun movie. I just find myself wanting to punch Christian Bale's character, especially when he talks about music, which is really funny though because he talked about Huey Lewis, and the only reason I really know who Huey Lewis is because of Back to the Future because he did a song for Back to the Future. So when I think of him, I just exclusively think of like Back to the Future, and instead there's a dude getting axed up to Huey Lewis, which is probably the opposite of what he had in mind when he created those songs.
The first time I watched it, it's funny you watch it now, was actually at a Halloween party several years back.
Which,
so, I always equate that to Halloween. Which
I know it's based on a book, correct? So
yes.
I'd have to go read the book, but always at the end of the movie, like, I don't care. I mean, spoilers on it, but, did it happen or did it not? It's the thing. Like, I'd probably have to go back and watch it, but because it's real late too, and I finished it. But it almost seemed like either he dreamt all of it up, or it just got covered up for him.
Well, easily. I think part of it's just the fact that he is who he is means that people don't really care if he did it or not. Even
because like he goes back to that apartment where he has all the dead bodies, and like it's all nice, and they're like selling it, and he's like, yeah, in this blah blah's apartment, and it's like, I think you need to leave. So it's like you said, either they didn't care who he was, they did it, and then he like one of the more. I know I'm like dropping a ton of spoilers, but I feel like most people probably seen it. But like it also blows up 2 police cars, like in the Grand Theft Auto moment, because like shoots the lady when it tells him to kill the cat. So he shoots the lady. He runs down the street and he like shoots the security guard, and then he shoots like there's a straight up Grand Theft Auto 3 moment where like you're just shooting police cars and they blow up, and I was like, did all this really happen? And he confesses, and he said he's like kind of a nobody. So
I mean, I think too,
in a way,
without like I haven't watched it. I mean, I've watched this movie a few times. I haven't watched it in a couple of years though. But part of the thing is too is like do you just make it all up in his head because this idea of what he's doing, and I like that it kind of leaves it open to interpretation in the movie at least.
Yeah,
and sometimes that hurts a movie, but in that case, I think it's fine just because of the message at the end. I think it works well in the context of what that movie is.
It's a good movie. I need to watch that again. It's been a very long time.
Well, it's on the Netflix Watch Instant. So if you own Netflix, you can watch it.
So did you watch anything else this week?
Besides Scream Queens? Nah.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I watched this, I guess, around 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Deathgasm, which is New Zealand, kind of Evil Dead-ish, or should I say Dead Alive, since it's from New Zealand. It's about like a metal band that essentially summons some demons by playing this certain music or whatever. It's good. It's fun. It has some really positive reviews, but it kind of like it's fun that it plays with the whole idea of a metal band and Satanism and all that stuff. But I feel like that joke kind of runs out within like the first 20, 25 minutes. And because of that joke runs out, and it keeps like, it's a part of the entire, it's what the movie's kind of about. It's the backbone of it. The other jokes don't play well for the rest of the movie. Like even some of the funny stuff that happens, I was kind of like over that, just a little, I guess it almost feels a little gimmicky. But it's not a bad movie at all. I'd probably throw it on and show you guys when you're over here one day. If we're just like hanging out or whatever, it's definitely a film I'd pop on because it's shot well and stuff, and it is funny. It's got some funny moments, but sometimes it's just like jokes for the sake of being jokes that don't service a story. But then they also kind of want to have the more, character focused moments and stuff like that. But it's not bad at all. Like if you're looking for something new to watch, I don't think it's a bad pick. I think I got it on Amazon or Vudu. It was like $10 just to buy. So yeah, it's not too bad, but I didn't love it, and I was hoping to like it more based on the reactions I'd heard. And I also watched We Are Still Here, which is, I believe this is a Dark Sky production, and I want to say it's a Canadian film. Not positive though. I should have looked that up, but I literally just watched that this morning, and we've been running around, we met up earlier before the premiere and we got all this stuff going on. So it's somewhat of a ghost story, but it actually has a bit of a twist. And I don't want to kind of give it away, but going into it, I was like, all right, I'm kind of bored of these movies. Like, they're not my favorite anyway, but, there's Insidious, Sinister, The Conjuring. Like, there's a lot of ghost house movies, and it's, in the beginning, it's played very, very straight, and it's just like, it tries to be soaking with dread and stuff, which it works all right. It works well enough. But then it gets interesting, and it made me like it a lot more, but it's still not one I'll probably watch a ton, but it's definitely one I'd like to pass around and share it. And I meant to bring it over your house tonight, William. So if you guys want to check that out, I think it's just maybe one when we do like a year-end podcast. It's definitely not going to be like best of the year for me, but I think it may be something you guys would like. I enjoyed it, I really did, but it definitely gets a lot more fun in the last half of that film. And yeah, I wouldn't say it was a standout of the year, but it's definitely one of the topper tier. I think, I just watched it this morning, so I have to gestate on it a little bit, but that also has like a ton of great reviews. And at first I was like, but it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. And other than that, yeah, just Monster Squad and the Goosebumps.
All right, so we can jump into our discussion of Monster Squad. And I guess we can kind of do spoilers throughout this one because it's kind of hard to spoil anyway. And it's, from 1987.
Yeah.
But looking through this, something I didn't realize was that Shane Black was one of the writers in this movie.
I did not pick up on that. May have heard that before, though, but I did not notice it in the credits because I was kind of half watching. I mean, I was watching it, but I'd seen it before and stuff. So
and two, just to give a brief description of what this movie is. From IMDb, a young group of monster fanatics attempt to save their hometown from Count Dracula and his army of monsters. And that is a pretty accurate description of what the movie is. and
that's about it.
And like part of the reason we kind of paired this with Goosebumps is that the kind of milieu of it and kind of the aim is kind of, I would say, similar, but I do think that Monster Squad had a much harder edge on it than Goosebumps.
Yeah. Well, because like Monster Squad, then again, like it's a completely different era because it was in the 80s, and it's while it has kids in the movie, it's not like a super kid friendly movie. I don't know if you want to show. Like, it's just a different era, Like I wouldn't personally have any issue with showing this to people, but like a parent might kind of be a little iffy because they started to blow up werewolf with a stick of dynamite, and
that's another thing. The werewolf is supposed to be somewhat of a sympathetic character,
and they just blow his ass up.
They literally, the cop knows he was like, "Please lock me up earlier," and he just puts that stick of dynamite down his pants and throws him out the window.
Throws him out the window and blows up. And the best part is he's just like all of his body parts are like kind of Evil Dead-ish, like flopping and coming back out. Yeah. It's just funny because I wasn't really expecting that, and he's just. Bam.
And for me, it's like I used to show my younger cousins a lot of stuff they maybe shouldn't have watched at their age, but I watched everything when I was a kid, and, and I was careful with what I showed them. But I didn't remember a whole lot from this because I showed it to them when I was younger too. Like I was in my early 20s, maybe like around 20, and none of that stuff really stood out. But now what stands out is just some of the politically incorrect stuff they threw out there. And the main kid, he's like kind of a douchebag. Like he's a jerk. He's kind of full of himself. He's like, oh, my dad's a cop. Nobody's going to mess with me. He's like not a likable character really, but he's supposed to be like the hero cool kid. Yeah. They throw in the word faggot pretty loosely.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's like, all right, we need to.
And then they make fun of the fat kid a lot by just calling him fat, right? Or like
fats or something. Yeah. And then also, they're walking past the house. It's just like a normal house, right? Granted, it's maybe a little rundown. And they say, oh, it's just somebody on welfare or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, man, imagine the kids watching this film as a kid that were on welfare. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, was that joke really necessary? Like the adults that put that in there,
well, and
they have not thought what that could have done to kids watching this movie.
And two, just to point out So this movie was PG-13. Goosebumps is PG. So Goosebumps, like I said, it's a little bit softer edge movie.
Yeah.
But in this one, like we said, they just straight up blow up a werewolf. Although, it comes back to life.
It gets blowed up real good, though.
And then, like, Dracula and his buddies, like, I guess they kill a bunch of cops. Because they don't really spend too much time on showing the, human toll of all this. But
no, they straight up, Dracula blows one dude up with a stick of dynamite. Like, the main cop's partner. He's, like, in the car. He's like, no! And Dracula blows up, kills him. And at one part, like, toward the end, he's walking toward the amulet. He straight drops, like, at least 7 cops, right? Like, it's a lot.
And one other thing that's kind of odd.
Like going through like Terminator, just popping necks and
Yeah,
everything.
and like they're running up with nightsticks. He's breaking necks and arms.
That is like a nice little one-shot sequence. I like that.
But it's funny because like they all just run up and just try to beat the crap out of him with nightsticks. It's like, obviously this isn't working. Why don't you all try something different?
Well, and two, like one other, element to this is that there's like a joke about the one kid's older sister not being a virgin.
Yeah, that was funny.
And so that joke actually kind of landed pretty well. But just the movie in general, like it's a fun movie to watch. It kind of pulls in monster lore, and I kind of liked their slight update on the visuals of the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, that was like one of my favorite updates. Like Frankenstein, I kind of prefer the flathead Frankenstein, but he still looked pretty good.
Yeah.
But I like Creature from the Black Lagoon. No complaints there at all. Like that was a awesome design. Werewolf, he could be better.
Yeah.
He has like no neck and he's like a football player.
Like werewolf is kind of goofy looking running around.
The mummy was just kind of, a mummy.
The mummy
design was awesome too.
Yeah, I think the mummy worked. I love the creature from Black Lagoon, but he really wasn't in it that much. Like he's
also a character that only really does something in the water. Like if he's outside of the water, he's just like
straight up gets smoked down with the shotgun at the end of the movie.
Yeah, that was a cool death too. That was like
what's funny. Let's just take a second to think about this. These kids are fucking some monsters up, dude. Like the one like cool greaser looking kid, or the one there that's older than they all think he's like really cool.
He still rides a bike. He still rides a bike.
Like,
he's not that cool.
A kid. But he kills all 3 of Dracula's women, right? Or at least 2 of them for sure.
Yeah,
he
the
kills
bow and arrow and stuff.
Yeah.
In the mummy.
And he killed the mummy, because he used the bow and arrow to kill the mummy. So, like, he kills at least 3 people. Then Fats just shoots the
He's
black.
You gotta look out for.
You mean Horace? His name is Horace.
His name is Horace, and he kills the creature.
Horace.
He kills the creature from the Black Lagoon. The werewolf is then again killed by the greaser kid. So he's killed like 4 or 5 things in this movie. Like you just think of all the stuff these kids did, and like they'd have like they'd just be messed up from this like going on forward because like it's just kind of a ridiculous movie,
and it ends like every 80s film that's like this type of tone, like kind of comedy where they're like, "Yay!" they're celebrating, and then some like song comes on that somebody made explicitly for the film.
Yeah,
like it just. And it's also funny too, is because like earlier in the film. Like Frankenstein is sent out to, we haven't really accurately described the story of this because it's not like there's a really super strong story, but apparently
it's essentially that Van Helsing and his people are trying to. So the part of the thing is they have a book with like some incantations. You have to say they're in German, but it has to be said by a virgin female, and he has like a young girl or maybe his daughter reading it, and they send Dracula through the portal, so he goes into time and he goes into modern day as of then 1987, and the kids find the diary of or come across the diary of Van Helsing, and all the creatures Dracula rounds them up and uses them to try to get this amulet that he needs, and that's kind of the majority of the setup. Frankenstein in this one is not a bad guy; he's a good guy. And I will say, like, we've mentioned before, like, in a lot of these movies, if you use kid actors, you kind of live and die by the kid actors' performances. Mm-hmm. But the youngest kid actors in this movie, I thought were pretty effective. Like, the very, very young little boy and girl. Like, they were cute kids, and they actually did a pretty good job. So that's something that didn't bring this movie down.
And the youngest girl was a virgin, so it saved everybody.
Yeah.
Well, she's older than us now, so
which is a weird thing, like them to like. I mean, it's not weird, but it's just kind of like, all right, this movie just goes in weird places.
Well, and there's a throwaway reference to Nazism and concentration camps.
Yeah, because like they're the weird German guy. The house they talk about being on welfare. There's a weird German guy that lives there. So they have Van Helsing's book, which is purely in German. So they go to his house and he translates it for them. Well, they say, "Man, you sure know a lot about monsters." And he's like, "Yeah, I suppose I do." And like as he's closing the door and they leave, they do a zoom in on like a number tattoo on his arm, which would then be a reference of concentration camps.
So it's kind of like a deep cutting reference and kind of a kid focused pop horror movie.
Like I said, it's just like a weird movie, because like if they were to remake this now, it'd be like Home Alone, which I don't know what this movie is. This is completely out of the blue.
Well, and two, just to talk about so this movie, according to IMDb, the estimated budget was $12 million. The estimated gross in the U.S. was $3.769 million. So it was not a hit. It's a movie that came out. Didn't do great at the theaters, but I think did really well on video and had a big impression on a lot of people who grew up in the 80s.
Well, because I think
it has a huge reputation.
It's a great concept because everybody loves those Universal monsters. And again, kids, it's like when I was a kid, loved Frankenstein. Like that was one of the earliest Halloween costumes I went as when I was probably 3rd or 4th grade. That I remember like specifically wanting. Like it's a great concept that brings all these monsters together. It's just. Maybe it's a little thin on plot, and it's fun. It's fine that it's kind of fun and light, but at the same time, just like some of the jokes they threw in, and the thing about saying faggot so much, like that is thrown around, and I understand it was a different time, so people weren't as conscious. But a few of those things just kind of really, really date this film in a way where it's like I wouldn't feel comfortable showing it to anybody younger.
Yeah, well,
like I would just this is a film I would put on the shelf and not pull out for anybody, younger kids for that reason.
Well, it's like the movies from like the 60s and 70s a lot of times kind of had like iffy racial politics.
Yes, yeah.
And viewed in their era, they weren't necessarily egregious, but with modern sensibilities, they're kind of like, And if you're in a room with people who might be offended by things, you're like, kind of sweating out. It's like, oh God, are they gonna be mad that I played this?
Yeah.
So, although this is a, kind of lighthearted movie about monsters coming to town and a group of kids who are the monster squad have to take them out, it does have a little bit of content not related to gore or anything that's just kind of, in today's media landscape would be questionable.
They were trying to be edgy for kids and I'm sure they succeeded at the time, but it's just one of those things where they should have, maybe focused on some other areas instead. It was kind of a cheap laugh on some of those parts, which the whole film's cheap on the attempts it's, going at. But
yeah, and not to be the PC police on anything, because I'm very far from thinking everything needs to be politically correct. It's just, just kind of pointing that out now. If you were to want to show like, a 10-year-old kid now, like, the sensibilities have shifted a little bit, and we'll get into Goosebumps and stuff like that in a minute, but this is definitely of the 80s era.
Yeah, because like he said, there are people getting called faggots. The virgin joke was kind of funny because the older sister of one of the kids claims that she's a virgin. She reads the incantations and nothing happens. And they look at her and like, you're not a virgin? She's like, well, just with whatever, blah, 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 but that doesn't count. So then they had to get, like, the little girl to read it because they know she's a virgin.
Well, and she doesn't read it. She just recites what the German guy tells her.
She recites it, yeah.
And it's one of those movies, too, where all the heroes live, even if, like... Because Dracula did something to the old German guy that I thought initially killed him, but, just...
No, I think it's just
him. I thought it would be great. While I was watching this, I'm like, these kids, they always have these plans or whatever. I thought it would be great to make a film where it goes through and you think it's like the kids are going to have a plan and then all the kids just get murdered and none of them survive.
Yeah,
and then
the
adults really have to come in and handle it.
Yeah, which is probably what would really happen.
So but then, like, instead, you could have one of the kids make the line of dialogue, "I'm too young for this shit."
Yeah, because like you think about like in reality, like when instead of the kid blowing the chest out of the creature from Black Lagoon and one kid killing the Wolfman and 3 other Draculas or vampires and They'd probably just die.
Well, I mean, in today's world, if you were to have this movie happen, could the kids pry themselves away from Minecraft and YouTube videos or Let's Plays to do this?
Another thing that's funny in the movie that didn't happen to the end is that one of the young boys that's in it writes a note that says, "Dear Army people, please help." Yeah. And he sends it in. And at the end of the movie, after everything is over, the Army actually shows up.
I specifically remember that. That's a funny gag. When he was writing the sign, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that happens in this movie.
It's just like a stupid little nod, and they show up at the end. It's like, really?
To go back to my comment that nobody really died, like one character who did die, and then like terrible death, was the partner.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Got blown up with a stick of dynamite.
Yeah, so
and nobody cared.
Yeah, nobody cared.
Oh, damn it, he's dead.
I think I actually missed that this time because I was like eating and everything. I must have missed it. Yeah, but I don't remember any major reaction in the film.
Yeah, because they get to Dracula's house, and Dracula goes to the main kid's house, blows up his little tree house with a stick of dynamite. The dad and the other partner show up. Dad gets out, starts shooting Dracula. Nothing happens. So Dracula lights a stick of dynamite and throws it underneath the cop car, blows the cop car up, and nobody cares. The dude's dead. It's like, damn, they straight up killed a dude.
And they definitely followed the old, horror cliche of the black character being the first one to die.
Yeah,
and I don't think that was necessarily like a purposeful thing.
A commentary on that.
I think that was just more of, that was probably the best actor for that part. And they killed the partner instead of the dad. So
and then at the end they're all celebrating like everything's fine still.
Yeah, it's like who's gonna go home and tell his wife or mother or family what happened?
Your partner's dead and half the police force has been eradicated by Dracula. So let's celebrate.
Celebrate.
Yeah, because come on. They all just, and it's just so funny to me that last scene where Dracula's walking up. It's like, if I'm watching some dude just mow down all of my fellow police officers with just his bare hands, and they're all running with billy bats, I'm not going to run with the billy bat. Yeah. It's kind of like an episode of Scream Queens you just have to watch with baseball bats, and it's like it just doesn't work. Think of something else.
So
and I know people will probably be like, there'll probably be some big defenders of this film that are mad that we're tearing it down, but it's just fun to point out how times have changed and how absurd some of the stuff is in the film. It's an enjoyable film.
We're tearing it down like in a good way. Like I actually thoroughly enjoyed this. I would definitely probably I would have no problem watching it again. It's just like when you think of the stuff that happens in it, like you think that it's a movie that is primarily aimed at kids. Like I don't think there's any way in this day and age that they have a James Bond dynamite stuffed pants kicked out of a window moment and blow somebody up. I don't see that happening.
And two, it's I think this is very much, there are people who are maybe just a slight generation ahead of me and like Sean, just in age wise, who, because I was born in '85, so of course I did not see this movie in theaters. But people who saw this movie probably when they're like 7 or 8, it kind of has that nostalgic pull on it, where that was kind of like one of the first movies you really got into, and what's cooler than a group of kids that have a clubhouse and end up fighting monsters, and so I definitely recognize that aspect of it, and it's a fun movie. It's just there's a little bit of things that kind of date it for the time and would make it a little bit difficult for me to say like, oh yeah, you should definitely show this to your 8-year-old son or daughter.
Yeah, unfortunately I would never say that with this film to anybody.
I think it's more of a high school age movie now, maybe. But then again, like people watch much worse things than this, and Grand Theft Auto, all that has more violent stuff in it.
Well, in all fairness, like me and you, William, specifically, because I talked to us about this, is like we grew up watching Predator and RoboCop, and this is like so this doesn't really seem that bad, but kids nowadays probably don't grow up watching that stuff. I don't know, So
I mean, the explosion doesn't really bother me that much. It's like I said, it's the PC stuff that's kind of like, in the welfare thing. It's just
which is kind of obscure because like not many movies can I think of where they actually make a reference to that.
Why single out any kids that may be watching this? They're on welfare. Like why would you want to ever make them feel bad for that?
This is like such an obscure comment too to make. It just, I don't know. It's just kind of a weird thing for them to even get into, but.
So it's also one of those things where the amulet that Dracula needs just so happens to be in the town where all of our main characters are.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really fault movies though for kind of putting characters in the same location because everything has to do that in some way. But like I said, this is a fun movie that if you're an adult or whatever, nostalgic, it's still a fun rewatch. Showing it to younger kids, I probably wouldn't show it to like kids who are younger than middle school. But I'm sure the things that they say on social media and see Vine and stuff are probably worse on the language.
Yeah.
It's just it'd just be if somebody asked me if they should let their 8-year-old see it, it's like you might want to hold off a few.
Yeah, like if you're gonna have a party of children at your house because you're hosting something for Thanksgiving and not Thanksgiving, Halloween.
Yeah.
Hey kids, let's watch Monster Squad. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, like if you have to like babysit, you probably wouldn't like want the parents to know you let them watch this movie because it is kind of over the top and ridiculous. I guess.
Then again, it's also like there are kids who've watched. I've been to horror movies before, rated R movies, where they bring kids, so it's not like this is
So you know what? Show them whatever you want. If you
When
want
I
to
showed my younger
read a
cousins
hustler
this,
afterwards, go for it.
I had already showed them like Army of Darkness and maybe Evil Dead 2, and they were like 5-ish or something, so it's
Evil Dead 2 is rated X.
But those aren't dated in the same way this film is dated, and that's what my hang up is. And I'm not like a PC police either, but it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, at some point this stuff needs to stop, and it's another one of those films that if it keeps living, it'll keep perpetuating it. And I hate to say this, but I think it would be awesome to see this film remade. Again, it won't have that same edge as probably of the werewolf getting blown up, but I'd love to see it. I'd love to see another PG-13 remake of this, and you can even have slightly older kids, almost like a Lost Boys or something. With maybe a couple like the Frog Brothers or something. Change it up a little bit.
Because this has been in discussion for a remake for a while.
Yeah.
So.
This would be a great thing to do with the Universal Monster property.
Yeah, and I do think if they did this today, it's one of those things where kind of the connected universe things. They would probably try to spin it off into individual movies and things like that. But I think just kind of having it all come together in one movie is the way to go. Yeah,
well, Dracula Untold or whatever, that was supposed to be part of their connected universe they were going to build. Yeah. Which I don't know how that's panning out. I haven't heard anything else about that.
Like the only one, kind of even going back to this one, the only character out of all the Universal monsters, kind of my favorite out of all those, the one I've gone back to and watched the most is the creature from the Black Lagoon. Mm-hmm. Just something about the way that story came across just, really got me interested. And that's a property where I think that I wouldn't want to see like a straight remake, but seeing that character reimagined now, with this, the better prosthetics and practical effects they could use. Because even in this, and Monster Squad in '87, the version they did looked really cool.
Yeah, it did. So they could do some awesome stuff with these properties if they just handle them right.
So I guess just to kind of sum up this, we're moving to Goosebumps. So on my thoughts, it's a fun movie that definitely, if are from that era, it has like a nostalgic value to it. It's still fun to watch. There's a few elements in it on, some of the dialogue and things like that kind of date it. And, wouldn't really fly with today's audiences as well. I mean, maybe they would. There's tough, movies that make all kinds of jokes like that anyway.
Yeah, it depends on the audience.
it's a little bit like some of the jokes they made were a bit mean-spirited for like kind of the kids movie that it is.
Yes, that's what it is. It's the mean-spiritedness of it, I think.
But in the end, it's nothing that would make me not recommend it to somebody who wants to see it. It's just something that you'd point out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, same here. Like if we're nearly 30, mid-20s or 30. So it's if you're of that age, it's just you'll watch it and you'll know, okay, this is how things used to be. Maybe it wasn't all right. It's fine. I'll watch the rest of the movie. Definitely a fun if you're in the mood for a type of that kind of just like fantasy adventure kids movie. Sort of like Goosebumps. That's why we kind of pair these together. Like it's a great one to watch. So I also do like the film, even though I've kind of pointed out a lot of things that were.
There's a lot of stuff that, like you said, maybe a little bit troublesome, but overall, though, just purely out of like enjoyment, it's great. Like maybe it's not the best use of words, but like it's just a really enjoyable movie. It's a short movie. It feels like because it went by. It moves fast. It gets straight to the point. There's not a bunch of needless stuff in it. And it's kind of funny watching like them preparing to kill all the monsters. They make like silver bullets and they're stealing archery equipment, and it's a fun movie. I really enjoyed it. Like I'd never watched it before until now for the podcast.
Okay,
and
cool. There's a lot of monster action. It's just like, okay, now this monster gets his little scene. Now this monster gets their little part. It's just that's really fun about it, and it keeps it moving.
So if you want to compare this to like a more modern movie that had a bunch of Universal monsters kind of in one, you can compare it to the Hugh Jackman Van Helsing movie,
which is way better than that.
This is like Monster Squad is way better than Van Helsing. There was that was a movie that I ended up getting on DVD because I didn't see it in theaters, and I bought it. And I was. It was when I lived in college in the dorms. I bought it. Me and my buddy, like, we would just throw a movie on before we were going to bed, and it took us literally like 6 days to finish that freaking movie.
Also, though,
I've never seen that.
That copy of the movie ended up at my house, and my dad watched it like every day for like 2 years.
Maybe we should do that podcast on that someday because it's got a really weird version of Frankenstein. And
I feel like too though we need to get our dad on it because he apparently watched it like every day for 2 years, so he probably has very high thoughts on it.
Yeah, so
little Caps commentary.
Yeah, this movie's great. Give me a Bud Light, and then it's over. And then he goes.
Did you guys see the trailer for that? I don't know if it's called Victor Frankenstein.
Yeah.
The kind of comedy. Did you see that, Derek?
No, I haven't.
It's is Daniel Radcliffe in that?
It's Daniel Radcliffe and James McAvoy.
Yeah.
So it's got Harry Potter and Charles Xavier from the new X-Men movies.
They basically make Frankenstein, but it's a little bit of a comedy too. Like it's just straight film, but it seems like it's going to be very funny at the same time. That looks interesting.
Something we probably need to talk about eventually too is like Young Frankenstein. That's
that's amazing,
phenomenal. Well, too, we can do maybe a Young Frankenstein and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein because Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein was one of my first, probably one of my first horror films. Like my dad was showing me that as young as I can remember, at least 3 or whatever, and that's just like one of my favorite films of all time, probably.
Yeah.
So that'd be a great little double feature.
Yep. So I guess now we can go ahead and move into discussing Goosebumps or McGurd.
All right, now with Goosebumps on me, I'm gonna hop off because I gotta go take care of stuff, and I didn't get to watch the movie.
Yeah.
So.
Well, here you go, Derek. You should really see the movie if you like Monster Squad, and you want to see the kind of a modern version of it that doesn't say anything too mean spirited. Definitely should see it.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna try to see it. I'm off this next Friday, so I'm gonna try to see it then.
Okay. Yeah, where can people find you at?
You can. Well, my main thing is like Instagram, so you can find me at MetaWorldDerek, and that's the easiest place to find me. I also have a Twitter, and it's DWCAPP90 at whatever you look people at on Twitter.
Just at Twitter.
At Twitter. I don't know.
It's at DWCAPP90.
Okay. Yeah.
On Twitter.
On Twitter.
Tweeter.
Alrighty, man.
All right, so now we're going to go into Goosebumps. So this movie stars Jack Black, and it's not about a Goosebumps story, so it's not a straight adaptation of one of his books. It is about all the creatures from his books coming into the real world where Jack Black plays the character of R.L. Stein, and they have to stop the monsters.
As my wife said, we were watching it. So this is just like Jumanji, right? I was like, yeah.
Yeah, because so Jack Black is R.L. Stein, then Dylan Minnette is Zach, Adoya Rush is Hannah, Ryan Lee is Camp, and it's got Amy Ryan in it from The Office and The Wire and many other movies as Gail, which is the main character, Zach's mother. And it's also
actually Champ.
Yeah, it's actually Champ.
I thought you said Camp.
Or Champ. Maybe I said that wrong. I said Camp. I don't know. And it's also got, some fun co-stars, and it's got Kim Marino in it in a very small part.
Yeah.
And it is, like I said, so this is PG. It's not PG-13. And it's 103 minutes, so it's a little bit longer than Monster Squad. And it's got a lighter rating. Overall, the performance of Jack Black, so you either kind of hate Jack Black, you love Jack Black, or you're okay with him. And I'm generally okay with him. Like in some stuff, he's great. Like School of Rock, High Fidelity. Some of his early work. He's on an episode of The X-Files with Giovanni Ribisi, where he's, pretty low-key and fun.
He's... Never Ending Story Part 3. He's the bully in that. I think it was Part 3.
So, his shtick isn't something I hate. I think that it can not work in some movies. In some movies, it doesn't really come across very well. But in this one, I thought that it worked pretty well.
Yeah. Well, I was at work maybe Friday or so, and he was like on some talk show, like, I don't know what, The Talk or The View, I don't know. Anyway, he comes on and they're discussing the film with him, and they say, what was your process for playing R.L. Stein? And he said, well, anytime I get a script for a film, I'm always like, this is not for me. I would be terrible for this role. But who would be good for it? And in this case, he said Orson Welles. He was like, so in films, I always play, like in this film, I played Orson Welles playing R.L. Stein. And that was in my mind the whole time. And that's how it plays out. And it's like done wonderfully. Yeah, he's a very fun performance that isn't just like a straight Jack Black role.
Yeah,
because the character's written really well too.
Yeah, he's not running around going, but to point out, I do love Tenacious D.
That was Adam Sandler, maybe.
Yeah, it was more like his Tenacious D singing voice and some of the machinations he has. And the main character, the other main character, Zach, that guy was in the show Awake on NBC, if anybody watched that, which I really enjoyed. It was kind of a short, it only had one season. And it was about a cop who had an accident, and like when he was awake, and when he was awake, his wife was dead and his son was alive, and he would go to sleep and he'd wake up, or he'd go to sleep, and then when he was asleep, it was the opposite, and it was just trying to figure out like which one's real, or either one real, and that was just a fun show that didn't really last very long. But he was in that. I thought in this movie he did fine.
Yeah, he did fine. He was serviceable enough. Wasn't annoying. And sometimes that's the best you can ask for these types of roles in these movies.
And one thing I'll say for this movie that kind of like, the running time was a bit, maybe just a tad long. But one of the things they did was they added in a subplot where the main character Zach's dad had passed away a year prior. And it didn't really feel like it added much to the story.
Yeah.
Like, they had that, I guess, as like a character trait, but it's one of those things where, it was kind of a big part in the first, 15 minutes, but it really didn't play anything after that, because it wasn't even really like Jack Black as R.L. Stein kind of became like his father figure or anything.
Well, he not to spoil it, but, I feel like that element is played into kind of some of the resolution a little bit, because he kind of brings that up to Jack Black and everything. Yeah. But yeah, it's not really earned too well.
It's just one of those things that kind of pads out the running time. Mm-hmm. But so the main thing that, about this movie is, okay, so how's it work when the creatures come into the real world? And the main character from the side of the Goosebumps monsters is Slappy, the ventriloquist dummy, who I think made a solid choice, probably based on the success of The Conjuring and Annabelle. Like, oh, let's use a puppet. But, there were some of the monsters from Goosebumps. So did you read these books when you were younger?
Yes, I read a ton of them. But, some of these I was like, I don't quite remember that one too much. But, I definitely probably had I probably read at least 40 of them. Yeah, and there's they reference some of them in dialogue that didn't get seen on the screen, like the Haunted Mask, which is kind of I think it was the first episode of the TV show when it launched. Or maybe that was a favorite one of mine.
Or like one of the bigger episodes, it was like its own special thing. Mm-hmm. But, there were some episodes of the TV series that were kind of goofy. Like there was one like the Attack of the Mutant that had Adam West in it, which, he was awesome. But the special effects were like truly terrible 1990s CGI. But I read a lot of these books as well because, I was a big, fan when I was younger of like the young adult horror genre. Because there's like that, like the scary stories to tell, like all that stuff. So, which is also being made into movies, or whatever.
That was like that book series, or those. I think I just maybe had 2 of those. Those were like phenomenal. Those like hooked me so much on horror. And then when Goosebumps came along, they didn't have quite the same edge, and they were longer and everything. But I was just like into it then. Like that was a really good primer for the Goosebumps series.
Oh, and I guess we should mention is we're not really getting into spoilers on this. We'll hold the spoilers till the end.
Yeah.
Not that you can really spoil this movie too much, but
it's very by the numbers. Like, even as you said, his dad's passed away. You know, my wife brought up, oh, well, it's just like most of the films where a family moves, to set it up too, a family moves into town. You know what I mean? They move into a new house, and it just starts out like a lot of films do, especially kids movies kind of like this. And it goes from there, and it's fairly predictable, but it has a couple little twists in there.
And two, like, you know, most of the creatures in this movie are CGI, and I don't really think it's to the movie's detriment that much. I mean, because this movie, to be done practically, would probably cost double whatever this cost to make, and therefore would not have gotten made. But, you know, for the most part, I thought that, you know, like Slappy was well done, who's kind of the lead character of all the monsters. And then a lot of the CGI ones, you know, they weren't terrible. They were, you know, serviceable for the plot, and they worked pretty well. The werewolf was the only one where I was kind of like, practical. Taking it back, like, so do you think the werewolf from this was more effective or from Monster Squad?
I think from this. I think it was from this. I mean, Monster Squad, it was great that it was a physical thing, but I think the design, I mean, I think it was Stan Winston that did those. Yeah. The design, if it would have been a little bit different and he would have actually just kind of had a neck, you know, it would have been probably more effective. But what you can say about this, even though it's CGI, they use that to their advantage, and they have some very fun action set pieces, and the characters are very nimble. You know, it's like the things that the werewolf does in this, the werewolf would have never done, you know, a Monster Squad with a practical one. Even if they would have mixed, you know, if they could mix the CGI, but being a kid's movie and stuff, and I feel like that would keep the budget lower. Like, I was totally fine with it all being CGI in this. I was like accepted, you know, that very accepting, because it wasn't even necessarily all about that. It was about the monsters, and they were fun, but yeah, it wasn't like CGI blood sprays that just look crappy. You know, they used it the right way. I think it worked in this film.
One thing too that, you know, kind of differentiates this movie. I said that weird. Differentiates. Something that differentiates this movie from something like Monster Squad or The Goonies is that, you know, the kind of main group of kids, and in this case, they're a little bit older, you know. Mm-hmm. They're high school age, so they're not, you know, super youngins. But it's kind of three characters who are like the younger group. So you have Zach, Hannah, and Champ, versus the other movies typically have more younger kids involved. Yeah. So it's a little bit smaller core cast of young people, but then Jack Black is, you know, the big part of it too. And like I said, it kind of just fills out the cast with, you know, pretty recognizable faces for kind of the smaller parts, which is nice. And, you know, there are some laughs in it, and, you know, just kind of a general, like, kind of fun Halloweenish atmosphere with just all the creatures and things like that. I don't know that I'll revisit this one very often, but, you know, I wouldn't really have any reservations recommending this to children, because when I went to the screening, there were a ton of kids there.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I don't know if I would. Now, watching it, I gotta say, I was thinking, I love this film. Like, I was, and I think I was in the mood for that type of movie. You know, I was going into it just kind of wanting like a light. You know, I like those like kid horror films. You know, some of the ones that I watched as a kid, and I just like super enjoyed it and had fun watching the whole thing. Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but I love Jack Black as R.L. Stein. I felt like they wrote that character really well, and R.L. Stein obviously has a good sense of humor about himself, because he's very, you know, I don't want to say he's pompous at all, but, you know, he's very much kind of an oddball, and just there's some great humor where they play with, his confidence on his abilities, and, you know, where he stands in the horror world of literature.
Well, he's thinking, I've sold 400 million copies. Yeah. He's like, is that worldwide or domestic? He's like, worldwide, but it's still a lot.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's just so many great moments. Like, but that being said, I don't know if it's one I'll just go out and buy, but when it drops to like $10 on Blu-ray, I will definitely get it, and it'll be a movie I just throw on sometimes. Like, I feel like there has not been a film of this genre. Granted, I don't go after these films a lot, but one that hasn't drawn my attention, and maybe it's because I used to read Goosebumps, but I like that it's not just all CGI film, like, you know, Hotel Transylvania or something like that. And I haven't given all those films a chance. Like Monster House, I watched a little bit of, but I just love that it's live action, but it also has a lot of fun monsters, and it's kind of like a light, fun monster movie. So I can definitely see me picking this up for like $10 and just throwing it on sometime. And there hasn't been a film like that I've like affectionately liked as much as this in a very long time.
So to kind of like talk about some of the like the movies in this similar genre that have come out that I actually really enjoyed. Did you ever see Paranorman? Or
no,
Coraline?
I did not. That's yeah, and I have not seen either one of those. I know they're supposed to be very good, but I guess they just didn't draw me too much because they're all CGI, which I like. But
well, on those two, it's like that animation style that's kind of like this something. And Coraline's actually kind of a dark story when you think about it. And Paranorman's a little bit more in line with this in terms of like the action, things like that. Like I think I liked both of those better than Goosebumps, but Goosebumps I think is a little bit easier sell to the general audience because it's live action.
Yeah.
And once again, kind of the point of this movie is if you're somebody that has young kids and you thought about seeing this movie, I have no reservations of saying, yeah, go out and watch this. They'll enjoy it because all the kids at the screening I was at loved it. Yeah. And none of the parents walked out saying, like, man, I was 2 hours, like what you do with some of those, movies.
Yeah.
Kids.
This is, I mean, it's hard to strike that balance sometimes. I feel like animation does it a lot pretty well to strike that balance. But like I said, for me, I kind of prefer the live action. And this is, it does it really well.
Yeah. And, this is, something that's a fun movie, but it's not, too deep or anything like that. It's just kind of the buddies against the monsters type movie. So, like I said, like I would recommend it, especially if you have kids. So, I guess we can kind of just, wrap up our pre-spoiler discussion. I don't know there'll be too much spoilers on this one because, like I said, there's not a lot to spoil. But so, do you have any closing thoughts you want to get to? Or
not really. Like I said, I really enjoyed this film. I watched it. I walked out of the theater really happy. It's just like kind of a fun movie. And just perfect little Halloween movie to watch. So if you're going out this weekend and want to check something out, there's Crimson Peak out and stuff like that. But this feels like a fun like Halloween romp. It's not set during Halloween, I don't think per se, but it's just especially if you read the Goosebumps books.
Yeah, it's got kind of a double whammy because it can be pleasing to the kids of this generation and appeal to the nostalgia of their parents who read the books when they were young. So it's kind of, double whammy in terms of, not a 4-quadrant hit, but something that appeals to kids and their parents, kind of like the Pixar movies and things like that do.
And, watching this too, I thought, we're kind of hitting, I'm not saying it's the end of it, but, when we get even older, the people that are kids now, the films they may make like this, we won't have any point of reference anymore. I'm trying to think. I'm so, I can't even think of any kid shows, but let's just say like, this is not My Little Pony. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like the kid shows that are popular now that really have a strong audience. Like if they do make ones that like for kids and adults, like in 20 years, when those kids are grown up, like you and I will have no point of reference for that.
Yeah.
So it's like our parents don't really have a point of reference for the Goosebumps stuff too much, so it's just, I've really enjoyed that this film was made and it was made well and it turned out as well as it did. Cause it's kind of, one of those special films that hits on, being enjoyed by kids and adults. And it's just, it worked in all the right ways. Yeah. It's not a perfect film, but it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. And one too,
I really like how inventive they got with it.
And one thing too, you kind of think about now, like I'm not really up on the scene of child's entertainment really. I only hear what my coworkers at my normal job talk about with their kids. But like when we were growing up, you had like Goosebumps, which was actually a little bit later in there, but you had like Are You Afraid of the Dark, Erie, Indiana, and like more kind of horror themed things or scary things kind of aimed at children and, kind of toned down appropriately for that audience. But, I don't really think that exists as much anymore. So it's kind of nice to see something like this kind of be a throwback to that era.
Monster High. My little cousin got those dolls. They're like, I don't know if it's still big, or if there's even a show, but I know they're dolls. They're almost just like, say, the Munsters or the Addams Family, but they're like Barbies kind of, but they're like undead or zombies or vampires. So I think there's a couple things, but yeah, it doesn't appear to be as much as there was when we were younger.
Yeah.
Kids now just watch American Horror Story.
Yeah, and Walking Dead.
I think they do watch The Walking Dead. So.
All right, so
yeah, I think that's my final thoughts.
Yep. So if you want to find more of the work we're doing on the internet, you can go to housebythevideostore.com, and there you can find the Patreon link we mentioned earlier. You can find links to all of our social media accounts: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Vimeo, Vine. All that can be found there.
October 30th, you'll be able to find our short film there.
Yeah, Brush with Death. I think our tagline as of right now is 4 minutes of terror.
Yeah, it was for the trailer. Unless we can think of something better.
The timing may change, but still going to be under 5 minutes. So, so I guess with that, we can move into spoiler discussion. Like I said, I don't think there'd be
1 second.
Okay.
I'm at Sean Blevins on Twitter. Or at Blevins Sean, sorry.
Oh, and I'm at Will_droid on Twitter. But, for spoilers on this, I guess like the only thing is when they kind of revealed that the daughter, like something that's somewhat troubling is when they announce, like you find out that the daughter was one of his books that he wrote that became real, and then he recreated her at the end. Mm-hmm. It's like, yes, he made something, he gave her back life and made her real, but it was essentially just to be the girlfriend of the kid Zach and his surrogate daughter. Like, that's a weird relationship. It is. And when it's a kid's movie, so it's not really meant to have a lot of thought go into it. When you sit there and think about it, it's like, so, like, did he create a background for her and like a fake social security? Like, what agency does she have in the real world since she's, kind of a creation of his imagination?
And you would think he would, like, if he was really lonely, create like a supermodel also. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's just like there's, like I said, it's a kid's movie, so I don't think there's supposed to be a lot of thoughts into it. But when you think about it, you're like, okay, so like, can she eventually like have kids and grow old, or like I guess he rewrote it so that she aged.
He wrote it that way, yeah.
But I don't know. It's just one of those weird things where when you think about it a lot, it's like, oh, that's kind of creepy. It's almost like he made a blow-up doll come to life or something. No, okay, not blow-up doll, but it's like he made an inanimate object come to life.
Yeah.
And
it's like Mannequin.
Yeah, and for the sole purpose, really, of providing companionship for his young friend and for himself. But he kind of got a girlfriend at the end, too, so... It's
that was like a little weird, but it was one of those things where I feel like it was just trying to give kids that satisfaction and happy ending,
Yeah,
because they probably won't think much else out of that once they walk out of the theater.
Yeah, because there probably was kids, if they didn't resolve that, would have been crying like, where did he get his friend?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
exactly.
I see why they did it, but it's just slightly troubling when you think about it long term. Like, do you just create people to satisfy your desires and needs who are just throwaways that are...
You created monsters.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a saccharine sweet way to end it, but just slightly troubling when you think about it all the way through. Aside from that, I don't think there's really too many spoilers.
Because it's pretty straightforward. I thought maybe that they were going to go around, collect them in each book.
But that would have been a long movie.
Yeah, so it was kind of cool the way everything was resolved. But again, like, just to bring this up, like I love when he's trying to get a rise out of R.L. Stine and he keeps poking at him like, those books suck anyway, and he's like getting angry. And then he says, R.L. Stine wishes he was Stephen King, like that moment was just so great. And I have such appreciation for R.L. Stine that he would, approve of that. Not that he had like a final say on the script, but I'm sure, is heavily involved in this. Like he even cameos at the end of the film.
Yeah.
But that really added a lot for me. Just the whole tone of the film. Yeah, it was very, very light and funny. And Jack Black I thought he was amazing in it. He really took the right approach with it and really built a character out of R.L. Stine. And that's exactly what the film needed. He needed to be kind of this larger than life character because as you're a kid, that's who he is to you. Like I never knew who he was. I was like, is he even a real person? At a time I had a theory that he was, there was a lot of ghostwriters because, I can't think of, the most common consonants or whatever, RSTL, whatever, in Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Or Wheel of Fortune. At the time I was thinking, oh, that's all those letters, aside from the vowels that you need to make that. And I was thinking, oh, is this just a made up person? So in my mind, he was just this person that maybe didn't even exist. So it's great that they made him a huge character in this film.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I don't really have a lot of other spoilers to go on this either.
Yeah, my only point was just the slightly odd relationship of this fictional daughter/girlfriend that was created.
Yeah.
But yes,
and there's a good twist at the end, in the case.
Yeah, on the Invisible Boy.
Yeah, that was a great little twist.
To leave room for a sequel.
And I feel like too they, if they do a sequel to it, I would almost like them to take a different approach than the monsters coming out of the books like that. Because they have all these other properties that maybe didn't fit that, like the Mask, and then the one where the dad is a botanist in the basement. He's almost like Swamp Thing or something. I don't know. I think he ended up turning into a plant. He's eating plant food. That's one of the stories. Like there's so many other stories that maybe don't fit into this style of storytelling. So it would be great to see him play with that stuff as well.
Or maybe get a TV series back and kind of go that way. But we will see.
Yep.
So I think that'll wrap up our spoiler discussion of Goosebumps. As always, thanks for listening.
House by the video store.